Oh, heck yeah. Maybe football on, maybe October, but when there's October, we only know one thing around these parts, and that's baseball. World Series baseball is going on right now. A ton of great baseball talk ahead on this show. Doc, of course, joining me alongside for the ride here. Doc, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing pretty well. Besides the fact my computer mic never works, but 1 for 2 on bets, and if Geno Smith doesn't rush for 13 yards for 2 or 3, that's the only football talk.
I said there's no football talk here, and I have to say you actually are looking quite good. This is as good as you've ever looked. So, very, very well done there. But
I wish I could say the same about you.
of course, you see a handsome gentleman on screen that's normally not here, so I got to introduce him the proper way. Welcome in a man that may have the last name Silver, but he's a guest worthy of being called gold in our books. This man talks baseball on the Launch Angle podcast, is the 2016 NFBC Main Event overall winner, and will sometimes throw those Canadian politics in there just for fun. Ladies and gentlemen, if you talk to this guy, you better be drafting Bobby Dahlbeck. It is Rob Silver. How's it going, man?
It's good, and I like the graphic with the snow falling in the background. As a Canadian, it makes me feel very welcome because winter is almost started here, and it sucks so much. So I love talking baseball. It helps make the winter go a little faster.
Yeah, what's the temperature like there right now?
So I'm in Ottawa, the nation's capital, which the weather here in the winter is horrendous. I moved from Toronto here. Toronto is far more like New York City, so it gets winter, but it's not a brutal winter. Whereas Ottawa winter is horrendous. So tonight it's getting down to freezing. So Celsius about zero, 30, 32, 34 Fahrenheit. So it's bad, and it's raining outside, and it's miserable. Like today is the first day where it just hits you in the bones, and only 6 months to go. Like 6 months from now, things are going to be way better here. But yeah, we have a long 150, 170 days of crap coming up. So let's talk baseball.
That was such an EKG. It's like, all right, things suck, but they're gonna get better.
Oh yeah, like we're only half a year away from things getting much better weather-wise. It's a long winter here. I'm not going to lie to you. It's I'm doing a great job selling my homeland here.
Yeah, you gave me the chills. Honestly, I'm just like, right now it was in the 70s today here in Baltimore, and anytime thinking about in the 30s, I don't do well with the cold. So I guess I'm never moving to Canada. But
I used to go to Washington D.C. For work a lot. And DC winters are the best, right? Like you can be in your neck of the woods in early February and we're in like a t-shirt outside and the flowers are starting to bloom and it's like, yep, we're done. So you get just enough winter where you get to taste it, right? You'll get snow in Baltimore every year, but it's a charming snow because it's going to be gone in 3 days.
It is. It's like the best of both worlds because I want to be able to actually see the snow. I want to
Sure.
be able to experience winter, even if it's just for a month and a half. But then you give us our sunshine, give us our t-shirts and shorts. Yeah. The one question I will ask you though, did you like living in Toronto or you like living in Ottawa better outside the weather?
I'm a big city guy, so I miss Toronto. There are aspects. I have a 10-year-old son, so there are we moved to Ottawa as folks who listen to podcasts or follow me on Twitter know because of my wife's job. So I'm happy to be here. And there are aspects of raising a family. When people say a city is a good place to raise a family, that's usually code word for it's really boring. And there's truth to that. Toronto is a big, 5th biggest city in North America. So I love Toronto. I miss Toronto. But there's, the traffic sucks. Housing prices suck, but I miss it. So Toronto, if you are an American thinking of moving to Canada and you can afford it, Toronto is a much better city to live in objectively than Ottawa.
The healthcare there too, probably much better than us.
Healthcare across the board. So that's across the country. We've got universal healthcare, but we don't want to go into politics. I don't want to alienate anybody.
That's
Yeah.
true.
It's in his profile. We had to make sure we
Yeah.
stuck that in there. But of course, we have Rob here for a very special reason. We've got a very pressing topic. And I know the World Series is going on, but with us fantasy baseball players, it's never too early to look ahead. And so we're looking at today mysteries of the winter. So the World Series, as we talked about, as of this recording, is getting set to begin tomorrow. Today is Monday, October 25th. It's going on October 26th. We're in for a long, crazy winter filled with negotiations and mysteries surrounding the 2022 season. So some of these mysteries include some players that we're going to be talking today, and that's about the dreadful 2021 seasons they had, the up and down nature of sorts. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out, one, where are we drafting the players we're going to talk about? And two, are we even interested in drafting these players? Do we see stuff in their profile that's scaring us off potentially for wanting to draft them next year? So we've got 6 guys here, and there's plenty more. So if we end up wanting to throw somebody else in there that doesn't get talked about, we may do that if we're feeling frisky. But we're gonna we're gonna start out here with one of the cover boys if you are watching on the YouTube channel, and that's Christian Yelich, who batted last year 248, 362, 373 slash, 9 homers, 51 RBIs, and 9 stolen bases. Some interesting things in his profile. He hit 187 against lefties compared to 271 versus right-handers. And the last 4 months, he pretty much alternated between 200 and 300 batting averages. Obviously, we know the back injury has been a problem, and it's been undiagnosed in the sense where there hasn't been some concrete answers for what's going on with his health. So, Rob, I'm sitting here today. I'm asking you, at what round would you feel comfortable investing in Christian Yelich?
Before you sent me the list of players, before I dove in on Christian Yelich, because I have PTSD, I had Christian Yelich on one team this year, and he was unstartable in the second half. He became what felt like this light hitting Judy hitter who could barely get the ball out of the infield, and he was getting some hits here and there, but it just felt so bad. So my gut answer was I'm just out. He is not Christian Yelich anymore. And then I started diving into the actual numbers a little bit, and it feels way worse than he actually was. So I'm going to paint a positive picture, and then I'll come back to the actual question. His skills have gone from elite to still very good. So his exit velocity percentile was 95, 98, 99. So nobody was better than Christian Yelich for 3 years, to 80th percentile. So it feels like he just wasn't hitting the ball hard, but 80th percentile ain't nothing. His hard hit rate went 100, 95, 97, 96, 98. So literally the best profile you could possibly have, to 87th percentile in terms of hard hit rate. Let me read you the players right after him in hard hit rate, because again, in my mind, coming out of this year, it's Christian Yelich. You can barely get the ball out of the infield anymore. Players right after him in hard hit percentage: Matt Olson, Bobby Dahlbeck, who you mentioned, Bo Bichette, Pete Alonso. Those are the guys who hit the ball not quite as hard as Christian Yelich. So what went wrong? And I know I'm rambling here a little bit, but I thought it was actually a really interesting topic to dive into. But some of the other players I think will be a lot faster on. He basically has reverted back to his Miami profile in a lot of ways, right? What was the thing we all said as he went from Miami to Milwaukee is he's got to stop hitting so many darn ground balls, because you just cannot hit 30 home runs with his ground ball profile. So last year in Miami, his ground ball rate was 55.4%. His ground ball rate over the subsequent years went 51.8, so getting better. Then that was the miraculous year where he still hit the home runs, even though he had a 50% ground ball rate. Then 43%, back up to 50%, and last year was up to 54.4%, right back to where it was in Miami. The problem was his home run per fly ball, when he was getting it in the air, just disappeared. That's a long way of saying there are glimpses of hope for Christian Yelich that I don't think you feel right now, and you certainly don't look feel or see if you look at his traditional stat line. The question is, so what's the next step? And like for me, I don't think I'm going to be in on Christian. All those positives, I don't think I'm in on Christian Yelich, because I have no reason to think that he suddenly gets healthy again. And I do think the health was a big part of this. But I certainly think that it's possible 12 months from now we're sitting there and saying to ourselves, kind of like what Joey Votto did. And obviously Joey Votto is a decade older almost than Christian Yelich. It's like the signs were all there. He just needed to make a couple of adjustments and it was all going to work itself out. And it'll be very obvious in hindsight, all the stats I just read. It's within him still to be, if not the like MVP level elite, still a really good player for where you're probably going to be able to get him. I just don't know if the risk is worth it for me. Sorry for a long answer, guys.
No, you don't have to apologize. It's all great information, and it's less time Doc will talk too. So I'm all for it. But like you said everything I would have added. Like you look, the ground ball obviously is the first thing you'll want to look at, and like you said, that spiked back up this past season. Actually, over the last 2 years, it spiked back up as you mentioned too. And then looking also at his actual home runs compared to his expected home runs, like his expected home runs were actually even less than his actual. So you could even say he was potentially lucky to get 9. The expected's closer to 7. So, with that back injury, if like they had said, this is the problem, he's getting it fixed, I think I would have felt a little bit better. But like right now, we're still left in the dark so much with what's going on with Christian Yelich. And back injuries are probably among the worst things you can have because, I mean, that's going to affect everything with your swing. It's not like, oh, it's like a wrist or, it's a knee or something like that. A back is very involved with your swing. And if it's something that could keep flaring up, and it's not like you expect a discount by a super deep discount, right? Like maybe he goes from being a second round pick to like a third or fourth, right? Like, I mean, I don't know, but he's been going so far in the really early drafts, but I feel like you said, it's going to be so early to the point where it's probably still going to be like, hey, even if it's a round or two less, I don't know if I want the risk that early. So
No,
I get that.
I mean, you guys were going to kind of say what I was going to say as well. I mean, he's been in the major leagues 9 years. You take away those 2 amazing MVP first and second finish places, and you look at the 7-year career he's had. He's only hit more than 20 home runs once. He had 21 with the Marlins. He's only had 20 steals once when he was 22 years old in his second season. He's hit 300 once, and his highest RBI total is 98. So those 2 years have really kind of inflated his value. Talking about the back, we also talk about the fractured kneecap. We're probably not going to see him as active on the base paths. So what are you really chasing? A good average with some home run potential? I'm with you guys. Like 3rd or 4th round, I'm out.
That's fair. Let's move to another guy. We'll go to the other cover boy, and that's Cody Bellinger, who during the regular season was definitely somebody that was not putting up Cody Bellinger type numbers. I don't even know who I would compare it to. 165, 240, 302 slash, 10 homers, 36 RBIs, and 3 stolen bases. But what's been very interesting is in the postseason, obviously they just got eliminated. 34 at-bats in the postseason, 5 runs, 12 hits, a homer, 7 RBIs, and 5 steals, a 353 batting average. Now, one of the key things with him also is he's only expected to have outfield-only eligibility next year. So you're not getting that first base eligibility you've had in the past. Talked about potentially him choking up more in the postseason as something that maybe has fixed his swing. But we heard him tinkering with his swing in the past. And so this is a guy that's it seems very volatile. And I don't really know where to value him. Doc and I have a fun little bet that I think by the end of spring training, the last week of spring training before the season starts, I think his ADP is going to skyrocket back up to a 3rd round pick. Doc says no chance that he gets up that high. I believe I've heard some people talk about that he was going in like the 10th, 11th, 12th round in some drafts. Now, Rob, where do you value Cody Bellinger going into next year?
So unlike Christian Yelich, there is nothing from his regular season profile that gives you any hope. Like there's literally nothing. If his name was not Cody Bellinger, you could not look at anything he did in 2021 and say, well, if he can build off of that, that's something. So you have only, and it's not nothing, you only have his history, and you have those 39 plate appearances in the postseason that you mentioned. What I'd say about the postseason plate appearances is first off, dude had a 500 BABIP. And my gut, and then look, if you guys are the types who place bets on the future, I'm happy to place a bet. I don't think that's sustainable. My gut is he's not going to have a 500 BABIP next year. Second, you mentioned him tinkering with his swings. I'm not a baseball scout. He had some of the ugliest swings that happened to turn into hits in the postseason I think I've ever seen. Like that game-winning swing the other day. He looked like a 12-year-old who had just picked up a bat for the first time and is shocked that something good happened. Like there were some ugly hacks. Put that aside. It is very hard, and I have searched to find somebody who is as good up to 26 as Cody Bellinger and then falls off a cliff the way Cody Bellinger did this season. There are players who have gotten hurt, and you can just look at the injury and say it was the injury that caused this. But Cody Bellinger wasn't just a pretty good player. Like he was on a elite top 3, top 5% career path. And there just are not a lot of players who just stop knowing how to hit. So what are the scenarios? One, he was hurt all season. We know he had a shoulder injury coming into the season. He sure didn't look like himself all season, and he sure didn't put up numbers like himself. So if that's the scenario, path one is, and he's healthy after a full winter off of training and rehabbing and doing whatever he wants. And it wouldn't shock me if news comes out in the next few weeks that he was playing through a much more serious or multiple much more serious injuries that he didn't talk about all season. Option two under that is, of course, he comes back and he's just as hurt next season and he doesn't get better. And option two, separate from injury, is for some reason he just forgot how to hit. And that's possible. But I'm more interested in Christian Yelich in a lot of ways than Cody Bellinger, which I think would surprise some people. I'm not really that interested in either of them. Saw the Steamer projection that came out today for Bellinger. They're hedging on playing time, and obviously it's unknowable in terms of what the Dodgers do in terms of their lineup. They have a bunch of free agents, so take that with a grain of salt. They see the power coming back, the batting average being about 249, I think is what Steamer had him down for. And, look, if it's in the 10th, 11th round and he looks healthy in spring training, then maybe. But as your bet implies, if he shows up in Arizona and he's smoking home run after home run and his exit velocity is huge and he looks like Cody Bellinger again, then he's not a 10th round pick. Whether he's a 3rd round pick or not, who knows? So, if you're drafting in the next 6 to 8 weeks and there's no information, he was so bad this year, and 39 plate appearances doesn't change that for me, that I've got to have a big discount, and there's got to be nobody. Put it this way. I would rather take a chance on Byron Buxton, always injured Byron Buxton, than I would Cody Bellinger going into this year. Why? Because the last time we've seen Byron Buxton when he's healthy, he's been nothing but very good. Cody Bellinger, when we've seen him healthy, has been, other than a few games in the postseason, has not been good.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a key point there too. If he goes to Arizona and he is looking like his old self, we know that a lot of these players, especially in the NFBC format where you have the best players in the world, you see that, and that's where I think that price could start elevating. Maybe it starts out he's going from the 10th, 11th to the 8th, and then people starting to be like, hey, I can't get him, in the 8th, so I'm gonna start taking him in the 7th. There's I know Dave McDonald, who's a really good friend of the show, started talking up with Zach Plesac, and Zach Plesac's ADP rose up to what ended up being.
How did that work out for him again?
It didn't work out well, but
I'm just joking, hoping that he watches. Yeah. I'm just needling.
I love Dave.
He's a guy. I had never met him before. I had a chance to hang out with him a bit in Arizona, at First Pitch Arizona, a couple of weeks ago, and he is truly a great guy. I know, lots of us, his Twitter persona and my Twitter persona, Twitter is not real life, but he is a good, smart dude. But he's a good dude, and I was quite thrilled to be able to hang out with him for a couple of minutes and chat over an adult beverage while in Scottsdale, while in Mesa.
It's okay. You can say beer on this show. It's all good.
Really, I didn't know what the protocol is. Beer is acceptable. I didn't know if
Yeah,
this was
this
one
isn't
of
a
the, this
What
isn't
if it
one of your
wasn't
Mormon
beer?
podcasts.
What if it wasn't
Uh,
beer? What if it was tequila?
he was drinking some kind of a brown liquor, so I don't think it was a beer. And frankly, I don't fully remember what I was drinking at the time,
Oh.
which is a small glimpse into how the week went in Arizona.
Oh man, Doc and I are really upset we missed out on that. It looked
It's
like
a
a
good
good
time.
time.
It's always a great time.
Doc, real quick, give us your thoughts on Cody Bellinger. I know you obviously think he's going to stay at towards like a double-digit round pick. Is there anything you'd like to add?
I mean, I know that he had 5 steals in 12 postseason games, but he had 3 in 95. And I think probably because every game carries so much significant in the playoffs, but don't think he's going to run as much with the stress fractures. He's hit over 300 once. Other than that, his 4 seasons are below 270. So you're really just chasing the good home run power. And as Rob has said, he seems like he's a guy that sometimes forgets how to swing the bat. So I just couldn't take him in the first 5 rounds. 6th round, yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
Probably not.
I'm going to be interested to see when they starts like when things start coming out this winter, like Rob was saying, was he really hurt? Is he putting in a lot of work this off season? Is he getting a lot of positive reports before spring training? How is he looking spring training? He'll be one of the guys I'm going to dive into a lot this off season. Let's go to the next person on this list, the last hitter on this list. That's Francisco Lindor. Hit 230, 322, 412 slash line, 20 homers, 63 RBIs, 10 stolen bases. Statcast page is all red. It would make a bull angry. It's very it's a scary looking page. And if you look at his batting, I looked at his batting average pre and post All-Star break, 225 pre All-Star break, 241 post All-Star break. Hit above 267 or 267 or above 2 of the last 3 months, 9 home runs in September. Kind of looked like he was looking a little bit more like the old Lindor towards the end of the year. Was it enough, though, to maybe make you take him above like a 4th or 5th round pick, which is where I kind of heard the murmurs of him kind of settling in at this point? Rob, what are your thoughts about Francisco Lindor?
So I think in a lot of ways, with a big asterisk I'll get to at the end, he's the same as he ever was. So 2017, he had 21.9 plate appearance per home run. 2018, 19.6. 2019, 20.4. 2021, it was 26.2. But from May 1st on, it was 22.6. June 1st on, it was 20.3. So power-wise, on a per plate appearance basis, for most of the season, after he got past that horrendous April, he was basically the same guy. On the stolen base side, because obviously that's a big part when you're drafting a Lindor of what you're paying for, he tried less often. So he had a 6.9% stolen base attempt per opportunity, which is not a statistic a lot of people dive into, but it's an important statistic. How often do you have an opportunity to steal a base? Do you take advantage of the opportunity? For his career, he's a 9.2% guy. So he's gone from 9.2 over his career down to 6.9% last year. He's only broken 10%, though, twice in his career. So he's never been an elite guy in terms of how aggressive he was on the bases. What it was for him was volume. And, that's not a bad thing. You can say volume as a pejorative, but he was getting 650, 700 plate appearances, which allowed him with a 9 or 10% stolen base attempt rate per opportunity to rack up decent stolen bases. But if you prorate his numbers from last year to 650 plate appearances with his career average, you're back up to 23 stolen base attempts. And, how successful you are caught stealing is pretty random. So if you just normalize everything, that's not elite, but in this day and age, if you can get the 20 home runs and the 20 stolen bases, that's an interesting mix right there. So what do I see from him? I see like a 25 home run, a 15 stolen base, 265, 90 runs, 80 RBIs type season. And on the one hand, that's really good and really useful if you're trying to build a team that stacks up guys who do a little bit of everything, and that's how you're going to approach speed next year. The problem is, I think you're still going to pay a premium because of the name. And I think he's another guy who I think as people build up their draft strategy is going to go higher and higher when the season I just described is basically Jonathan India or Chris Taylor. Now, that's not a bad thing. My guess is, though, Jonathan India and Chris Taylor, the actual Jonathan India and Chris Taylor, are going 3 rounds later than Francisco Lindor. So I don't hate Francisco Lindor. I do think that he's basically the same guy and he'll be fine next year. It's going to come down to cost for me, and my guess is the cost is going to be a little bit more than I'm going to want to pay. But what do I know? It's October right now.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at his profile, and there's some troubling trends when you look at it, like his slugging percentage, his OPS have each declined over the last 4 seasons. His strikeout rate is actually the highest it was of his career last year. He was walking the most he had in his career, but I'm like looking at it, the batting average too. The batting average has started to sharply decline some. Do you think that's just some of the way kind of, not saying he won't be a productive player, but could it just be, I know he's 27, so it's not like he's old, but could it be a certain point where his skills are beginning to decline? Like, is he starting to settle in to this type of player where, like you said, he's on the same level as a Jonathan India, as a Chris Taylor. He's not the superstar anymore. That's kind of where you're planting your flag with there, Rob.
Yeah, like his last 4 years in terms of fantasy player, like last year he finished as player 158 on the player rater, 2020 91st, 2019 24th, 2018 5th. So on the one hand, the graph is going like this, and that's the wrong direction. On the other hand, I think he does bounce back, and he's somewhere in the 50s, 60s. So I have no problem, depending on your roster build, with him in the 4th, 5th round. If that's where he lands, I think he'll be a fine value there. If people think Francisco Lindor, superstar, $200 million player, and he's a second, early 3rd round player, that's where I tap out. So I just have no sense on how people, with the New York bonus, though, New Yorkers are probably pretty darn down on Francisco Lindor right now. So that could play both ways.
Have you ever seen the Family Guy flashback? I don't know if you're a Family Guy fan or not, where Stewie goes, "This is more depressing than the New York Mets season," and they go the first pitch, and the Mets season is over. He's like, "Oh, dang it!"
It's true.
It is. Doc, anything you'd like to add on Francisco Lindor?
I mean, you guys, I think, did it for the most part, but I think the first year of signing a big contract is always a little bit overwhelming. Like we looked at it with Bryce Harper, where he had a pretty disappointing first year. I mean, obviously, New York, it's a little bit of a bigger market, but I think there's less pressure. I mean, if he's healthy, lock for 20 home runs, double-digit steals. As a middle infielder, I think it's pretty valuable. 230 is far from the 278 career batting average. So if I could get him in the 3rd or 4th, I would definitely take him.
Yeah, we'll see how that plays out. Obviously, also see what the Mets do this offseason, if he's going to have protection around him.
Yeah, if Jacob deGrom's the best hitter on the Mets going into next year, then that may change my opinion on Lindor slightly.
Yeah, I'd like to see how free agency plays out with them. Let's go now to some pitching, and let's talk Aaron Nola, who I was really glad I did not have any Aaron Nola this year on. I don't. If I did, maybe it was on like one of my rosters, and very up and down year. 9-9, 4.63 ERA, 223 strikeouts, and 180.2 innings pitched. 2 months again. He kind of flip flop with his ERA a lot of months. 2 months in the 3s, 2 months in the 4s, and 2 months in the 6s. As far as his ERA throughout the 6 months of the season, it seemed like he'd give you a fantastic start, and then he'd give up 6 earned runs in his next start. So will he be more consistent next year? Now, I've heard people throw the theory out there that he does very bad on odd number years, and he's been doing well on even number years. So if you like to buy in on those kind of narratives, there's that. But I feel like Rob's going to give us more of the numbers. Do you think that you should buy into Aaron Nola this coming year after what was the down year for what we expected?
I have this magic rock, and since I've had this rock, there have been no bear attacks in my home. I do not buy the Brett Saberhagen or the Aaron Nola even odd year theories. If there is any discount on Aaron Nola this year as compared to last year whatsoever, then it presents a buying opportunity that only come around so often. Aaron Nola had a 3.26 SIERA last year. It was the exact same SIERA as he had in 2020. He had the 5th best strikeout minus walk rate in baseball last year. He had the 6th best SIERA. he was elite. The results weren't elite, so it sucked if you had him on your fantasy team. Like, unless you're playing in a Sierra and strikeout minus walk rate league, and God bless you if you're playing in a league that uses Sierra as a category. That's even for me a little bit much. He's awesome, and he was awesome, and the results weren't awesome. Why weren't the results awesome? He had a 66.8% left on base percentage, which was the worst in baseball amongst starting pitchers. For his career, he's 74%. Left on base percentage is relatively random. It's part your bullpen, but it's mostly luck. Joe Musgrove, for example, has had the lowest single season left on base percentage in 2019 of anybody in the last 3-4 seasons. The following year it was 77%. So it just regresses back up to kind of what your average career number is. If you simply make that change, just add those 8% from what his left on base percentage was last year back to his career norm, his whole season looks different. The whole narrative of Aaron Nola looks different. In terms of his stuff, his changeup had an 84th percentile swinging strike rate. His knuckle curve had an 80th percentile swinging strike rate. I love pitchers who have two pitches that he can get swings and misses. If I want to nitpick on something negative on Aaron Nola, his fastball, his four-seamer, got fewer swinging strikes and got hit hard at 11.8% barrel rate. That's kind of Austin Gomber, Keegan Aiken territory, 16th highest barrel rate. But I'm not sure how fatal that actually is, in part because his other stuff is so good. There's a lot of good pitchers who occasionally their fastball. Think Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer occasionally will just give up meatball fastballs for a variety of reasons, and he's able to pitch through it. I have a theory, and it applies to the next guy we're going to talk about more than Aaron Nola. You can give up walks, you can give up the occasional home run. You can't do both of those things. That's where you're really going to suffer. And his velocity on the fastball was the same. So there's nothing about the fastball that would indicate that it should be much worse. It was getting worse results last year. That's a nitpick. But yeah, if I have Aaron Nola as my ace coming out of a draft next year, I am in fine shape. I am fine taking Aaron Nola wherever he goes as my number one pitcher. It doesn't mean there aren't pitchers I like more, but I think if you do not have Aaron Nola ranked in your top 10 starting pitchers for next season, you're doing it wrong. And I think you can make an argument that when you combine the volume that he's likely to pitch along with the results, that he should be closer to top 5 than to top 10.
And you expect on a team like the Phillies that are always one of the top run scoring teams, he's going to obviously have a chance at a lot of wins too, which most leagues still count wins as a category, which you want. You obviously want to accumulate those stats, but you're right. Looking into his profile, the Ks per 9 is right there. The walks per 9 was actually the lowest of his career. The K to walk, best of his career. The home runs per 9 was a little higher, so maybe you would expect maybe that goes down. I know the ground ball rate was not as high as it normally is, but you'd expect hopefully that could go back to what his career norm is there. I mean, elite across the board, and like you said, the left on base is an outlier compared to anything he's had from 2017 on. So I'm right there with you. I haven't done as much deep diving yet into players this offseason, but again, just looking at it right now, it's like everything is there. It's like a picture. It's like a painting where like you see the painting, but then you look closer at the painting and you're like, oh, I see what it is.
You know what's frustrating? You know what's frustrating though is this is where I sound like the old guy. 10 years ago, Aaron Nola coming off this kind of season, you get a big discount on because everybody would just look at last season's ERA. We're all too friggin' smart now. Like there are so few people who will not realize Aaron Nola's the same guy. So everything we both just said, I think that's just going to be conventional wisdom that every single person playing fantasy at any kind of level, and I'm not talking like big money NFBC, I'm talking like your home league, everybody's going to know. So I don't think there's going to be any discount on Aaron Nola, which everybody's too smart now. It sucks.
Yeah, it's kind of got depressing, but you're right. It is. It's like you can't get those little edges that you used to.
Yeah, you need new edges.
Yes. And Doc, I want to go to you for this next one. We're going to go to the next guy here. I'm going to give you the edge, and you can lead off with this one. Blake Snell, 7-6, 4.20 ERA, 170 Ks, and 128.2 innings. He was, if you were to put a Jekyll and Hyde pitcher, a face to that name, it might have been Blake Snell, who completely looked like a different pitcher post All-Star break. Pre All-Star break, 4.99 ERA. Post All-Star break, 3.24 ERA. Looked a lot more like himself. Now, how do we value Blake Snell going into next season, Doc?
I mean, I don't think I've ever owned Blake Snell on any of my rosters. And I think his one Cy Young year really kind of hyped him up where he had 21 wins. Last year was the first year that he actually pitched 7 innings in a game since that Cy Young year. So he went a year and a half without reaching that mark. He won 180 innings in his Cy Young year. The highest is 129 since. I think we were just worried initially about the Dodgers in the division, but the Giants are a really good hitting team as well. He has to play in cores a couple times throughout the year as well. I just don't like where he's going. Like you said, he's very Jekyll and Hyde, and that's how I felt about Aaron Nola as well. I'd rather let somebody else take him high, but if he can slip to the 5th, 6th round, I would take him there.
Yeah, I mean, if you look, Rob brought up that the steamer projections are out, and right now they project him for a 3.4 ERA, 3.48 ERA next year. His FIP this year was 3.82. So there were some ERA indicators that showed that he pitched better than his actual ERA was. So, Rob, I'm curious. Aaron Nola, once you dig in, it's like, boom. It's like nothing to worry about. Are you feeling the same with Blake Snell?
No, I'm not. So his fastballs, what's the term for it? Atrocious. So it's gone from the last 3 seasons, swing and strike rates 14.7, 11.3, 9.5. So from 14.7, which is very good for a fastball, down to 9.5. His barrel rate has gone from 3.8 to 8.7 to 11%. So that's gone way up. And the thing is, you could say, well, I'm not that worried about it because he's got that slider, and his slider is a really good slider, like 94th percentile swing and strike rate. Like it is an elite slider. Problem is he throws the fastball 52% of the time. Like he throws it so often. And the walks really worry me, and especially with the fastball. His fastball, and on Alex Chamberlain's pitch leaderboard, you can separate all these things. His fastball had a 14% walk rate by pitch, and that's the highest of any starting pitcher's fastball and the 6th highest of any pitch overall. And like that's not great when you're both getting killed by barrels and you're walking too many guys. That's a tough combo. And my problem with drafting Blake Snell, even if he slips into the 5th, 6th round, is I think he needs to both get better, because I think that the second half actually was him being lucky a little bit more than really good. And I need him to increase the volume. And when you put those two things together, as it turns out, maybe Tampa knew what they were doing in terms of pulling him all those times. Like for him to become an elite pitcher, if it's just one thing he needs to improve, like, he's just never thrown enough innings, so I need to see him go long, or he's thrown tons of volume, he just needs to make this tweak. If it's just one of those things, then I can buy in. When I see a pitcher like Snell, where I think he has to do 2 different things at the same time to get to where I want him to be, I'm a little skeptical that he's going to be able to pull that off for 6 full months.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's not a lot looking in there that I'm very happy or confident in. Like when you look at his profile, one of the things that I thought was kind of interesting that was brought up on a lot of other shows and just in general was he was insistent was on the changeup, that he wanted to throw his changeup and was kind of ignoring the results it was getting. It took him getting blown up a few times before he finally started to just ditch it. And to me, when a pitcher sees those types of results and is being that thick-headed about things too, it's like, hey, like if you're not seeing how a certain thing is working for you, or you're not seeing how the process isn't working, it's like, then you got to be reactive. The league is reacting to a certain thing. And if you're not, trying to step ahead of them and eliminate that pitch and up some of the pitches that are doing better, it's like, it seems like he's a step behind, and it just, one of those things that I mean, San Diego next year has Mike Clevenger coming back, and you would expect they want to contend. And if he's doing what he's doing next year to start out the year, who's to say maybe they don't demote him to a long relief thing in the bullpen, which could be even worse. So as the thunder strikes, so it knows that it could be trouble. Let's get to the last guy here, and this might be the most interesting pitcher of the three to talk about on this list, because he had as much prospect hype as anybody, it seems like, in the last few years, and he looked like he was going to, he was the top pitching prospect on a lot of people's charts just a couple of years ago. And now Jesus Luzardo is coming off a 6-9, 6.61 ERA year, 98 Ks and 95.1 innings pitch, all blue on his StatCast page. We call those Mr. Freezes around here. And not much, if you look at his pitches, not much went well outside of his curveball. Every other pitch got hit a pretty good amount. Did make some positive strides towards the end of the season, was a little bit more kind of hit or miss rather than just getting hit a bunch. And his last start in October was pretty good. So, Rob, we're going into the offseason now with Jesus Luzardo. Obviously, in dynasty leagues, you're holding him and you're expecting better. But in redraft leagues and big money leagues, where are you confident taking Jesus Luzardo?
Nowhere. I don't think he has been healthy for 4 years now, since 2018, 2019, when the A's ramped him up to bring him up for the playoffs. And I don't have any reason to think that he's suddenly going to be healthy. We talked about him in Arizona. Nick Pollock from Pitcher List disagrees very strongly. He thinks he can recreate himself as a totally different pitcher from the pitcher he was as a prospect. I'm willing to accept that could happen. It just won't be on my roster in a redraft league this year. I think he's a different guy from the crazy hype prospect. And the thing with the Marlins is they have a ton of options. Like, if I was going to draft an injured pitcher and I could either have rehabbing Sixto Sanchez or Jesus Luzardo, give me Sixto 1,000 times over Luzardo. And I don't know that I want either of them necessarily, but the point is the Marlins have arms. It's a weird world to live in where they have actual pitching depth. So I would take, and I'm open to you guys. Obviously, it's your show. You can say whatever you want. Disagreeing, I think he'll be in AAA most of the season. I think he'll be injured most of the season. Like, I've very little interest. Look, if he shows up in spring training and his velocity readings are back to what it was when he was the top prospect, then I'll reevaluate that. But as of today, I don't think he'll ever get there again, and I'd love to be wrong, because I hate pitcher injuries a ton. They suck.
Now, is there any point where, if, let's say, Jesus Luzardo was in the last round of your draft, would you take him there?
No. Because
okay.
one of the lessons from Phil Dussault, who won everything in the NFBC this year, is don't approach the last round as if it's a dart, to just take a what the hell guy, because he was taking guys who were going to win 20 games in the last round. So it's no. I mean, again, who knows what happens in spring training? Like, I reserve the right to change my opinion when I've actually done research and thought this through. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is, as of today, I have very little confidence he will be a productive major leaguer in 2022.
Doc, anything you would like to add? Do you disagree with Mr. Rob Silver, or are you on agreement that you are out on Jesus Luzardo?
I mean, I'm out on him. Like, I don't think taking him, like what Rob said, as a dart throw in the last round, like, are you chasing the upside where in 2019 with 12 innings pitched, he had a 1.5 ERA and then a 34.8% K rate? Like, he had 6 games where he went more than 5 innings, so very rarely will he qualify for the win. I think best case scenario for him is he's a long reliever. As Rob mentioned, they have a lot of arms there. Sixto Sanchez is coming back. They could have him maybe be in that Ryan Yarbrough role that we've seen Tampa do traditionally, where maybe he pitches, the 3 through the 6, or 2 through 6, or something like that. But I need to see results first before I'm taking him just based off the name.
All right. Well, again, obviously we're diving into the end of October. Like Rob said, no one needs to stick to what they said here. This is kind of just a preliminary look kind of as we get ready for this long off season, and we get to dive in all these players, and we actually get to have a full. I know, it's mentioned not just to look at the past off season, but last season, look at multiple seasons. But it's nice not having 2020 be the most recent season that we look at. We have a full season to kind of digest and look at some numbers. So great information from everybody here. But we're going to get now to the fun part of the show, starting off with the question of the week. Now, Rob, do you know where that's from?
No, that sounds like a Star Wars sound clip. No? Star
Rob.
Trek?
All right, I'll play it one more time. Super Friends.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, Super Friends.
Have you ever seen Super Friends?
Yeah, I have. It's sorry, I'm showing my age.
I think it's from like the 1970s.
I don't know what. Then I'm not thinking of the same Super Friends.
Oh my goodness, Rob! You know what? I'll forgive you.
This is my first and last time on this particular podcast. That's the test. Can you identify Super Friends? Apparently, yeah. I failed.
I've asked. It's usually a 50-50. So I won't say it's like overwhelming.
I'd like to see a list of who's on one side and who's on my side, and then I'll decide how embarrassed I should be about that.
One of these days we'll have to put that together. But
yeah,
I mean, it is a fantastic way to intro into our question of the week here. And our question of the week, of course, is sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight. Triple Play Fantasy is an official affiliate to Monkey Knife Fight, the fastest growing sports betting site in the United States. New depositors receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 using promo code Triple Play. You also have to be able to identify Super Friends to get that. So.
Tough affair.
But anyway, our question this week: who would be the best cowboy in Major League Baseball? And Rob sent me a DM kind of like asking a follow-up about it, which is very fair. So this could be like who you could see like in a costume, like a cowboy costume. This could be who you see in a Western, bunch of different ways you could classify it, however you want to classify it. So
so let me clarify even further. Do you use the term cowboy as kind of like a badass term or as a pejorative term? Because I want to be careful how I answer the term, because look, I don't mean to be woke or anything, but I think we're at a time when cowboy can be seen in lots of different ways without going into like a Brokeback Mountain type of sense. I'm talking like stereotypical cowboys. When you say that word, what does it like emote for you?
I mean, that's kind of how I approached it when I was coming up with
positive.
It. Like, yes, all positivity on
all
this
positivity.
Show, so,
okay,
yes,
perfect.
So you're the guest, so you're going to lead us off here. If one of you guys take mine, I'll be very upset. So
last clarification question: does it need to be a current player? Can be a historic player too?
Now, I didn't clarify that it had to be a current player, so you can pick whoever you want.
Okay, I'm gonna go the biggest badass I think in my lifetime, certainly in baseball. Who, if he were a cowboy, would like clean up as the local sheriff. That would be Nolan Ryan. Like, I think he'd be grabbing guys off their horses and just throwing them aside, kind of Robin Ventura style. He's obviously got the Texas twang to him, so I assume he's good at firing small weapons and guns and such, which is key if you're going to be a cowboy. So yeah, I'll go Nolan Ryan as my best baseball cowboy.
I like that. It's a good way to start it off here, and the ways that you describe it too are very good. I like the thought that was with it. So that's all I was looking for.
Spend all day thinking about who the cowboy should be.
I love it, Doc. Who's yours?
Well, I thought we were going with a current player, and I was going with the longest tenured. Oh no, you're fine. I was going with the longest tenured player that lives in Texas, which is Jose Altuve. If you think about it, small, compact. Seems like he commands the center of attention. Like, you've seen that picture of him next to Aaron Judge, right?
But what does that have to do with being a cowboy?
No, but he just feels like someone that can, if he can put up similar stats to Aaron Judge, if he can hit a home run just like he can, just feel like he takes control. He could wrangle a ball. He could do whatever cowboys do.
Do you think Altuve would have like one of those midget horses that he'd be riding around on, or would he have a full size? Would he have a full size horse when he's riding around in
donkey,
the?
Right?
Yeah,
I see him having one that's bigger than him that he knows how to control.
Fair enough.
God. Doc, I'm glad you went second with that horrible one, so I can end it with this one.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to hear yours. Like make fun
All
of
right,
it.
so the answer is Todd Frazier. So first of all,
Wow.
you have to pick someone who plays for the Texas Rangers, right? That's first a qualification. You did that with Nola and Ryan. So Texas Rangers, he hunts. So if you're a cowboy, you're always on the hunt, right, for something. So I think that's another qualification. You see when he gets dirty for when he's playing third base in his prime, and he'd get dirty, go down for those ground balls. Means he's going to get dirty, and if he has to go and wrangle and tie somebody up, he's going to go ahead and get dirty and do that. I think if I mean, and he would probably look good with a cowboy hat too. So if you're saying the definition of a cowboy, I feel like Todd Frazier has.
Isn't Todd Frazier from like New Jersey?
Yeah.
He is, but he plays for Texas. So he did play for Texas.
So, David, when you first said that, I was like, okay, that's actually a good one. I'm not going to make fun of him. But your reasoning was just awful.
Well, what would you have said that I didn't say?
Well, when you said he hunts,
If I had had to, if I,
no, go ahead, go ahead.
I don't know if that's true. If I'd had to do a current player, I would have gone with Madison Bumgarner, who's probably the biggest redneck
yeah,
in
he is.
baseball today.
Yeah.
He is a good one. That was fun. That was actually
Madison Bumgarner drives to spring training, pulling a trailer with a horse in the trailer. He basically is a cowboy. If you know, anyways, that would have been my backup answer.
I mean, he does have an alias of Mason Saunders as his cowboy name.
There you go.
Or doesn't he bull ride or something too?
He does. He does all kinds of, he obviously destroyed his shoulder and basically ruined his career. Also riding like RVs, which is basically modern cowboy game.
That's a great
wow. Shame on us for not saying that.
Yeah, that's a great throw-in one. You just saved the question with that one.
You can tell how much time I put thought into this. I didn't want to offend anybody because I didn't know where this was going to head. Anyways, I'm glad we did the question.
That was fantastic. It's a good way to lead into our last segment of the night, which is the question of the week. All right, so I'm pretty sure the Jeopardy theme song won't get us our monetization off on YouTube here. So
cancel it, David. Cut it off.
I think we're saying.
Why didn't you ask me if I knew where that theme song, where that drop was from?
Rob, if we didn't know that one, I think I have my phone on the show right now. Our question of the week. So this game,
it's game of the week, David.
Game of the week is a game that I like to call Arizona Fall League player or player I made on MLB The Show. So I'm going to read you 7 names here. I have 6 for the actual game. If you guys are tied 3-3, I have a tiebreaker. And your job is simply to tell me, is this an actual player or is this a player I just created in a video game? All right. So
I feel like I'm going to lose.
Oh, I'm so bad at this because there really are some obscure players in the AFL this year, and I didn't pay that much attention to the rosters when I was there. So this is going to be humiliating, but I'm all good with it.
All right, well here we
go. Good game, Rob. You already won.
Yeah.
Oh wow, he's already given up. Okay, let's see what happens.
Yep, I'm throwing in the rope. Rob's the cowboy.
All right. Question 1 or player number 1, Gabriel Moreno. Starting off with Rob for the first one.
He's a Toronto Blue Jays catcher prospect who unfortunately was not playing when we were there, but he's off to a good start since he started playing. So he's an Arizona Fall League baseball player.
So I will say this. And I guess it's part of me for not explaining the rules clearly enough. You guys are each going to answer the same question.
Oh, geez.
So I would.
So I kind of gave it away.
Yeah, pretty much.
So
you kind of gave it away. You really gave it away.
To be fair, how impressive would it be if I were full of shit? And in fact, I had faked that whole thing, and there is no such player.
Well, it would have shown how much you prepared for the game that you didn't know was coming.
Exactly. So that's a freebie. So it's 1-1.
That's fantastic. Doc, there you go. You won't be shut out. You can thank Rob now. Unless you want to change your answer, unless you think that's wrong.
I don't know, man. Just a hunch that it's a Fall League player.
Well, is it the correct answer? And I don't know where my ding button is on my soundboard. Oh, here we go. There we go. Okay, so you're both correct. 1 point on the board each. Doc, you start the second one here. Davis Beatty.
I'm gonna say that's a fake player.
Rob?
Yeah, that's definitely a fake player.
Yes, I changed the first name. I didn't actually. I should have put what his actual name was, but the Beatty is third base outfielder for the Salt River Raptors. So that
there
is
you go.
false. All right, tied 2-2. Question 3. Rob, we're starting with you. Leo Jimenez.
Boy, that's like as generic as Fred Smith. I will say that is an AFL player.
Doc?
That's a fake player.
We got our first disagreement, and Rob gets the point. He is an infielder also that plays for the Blue Jays.
Yes.
Felt like I had to diversify.
Yeah, I knew that one, but I know.
hit-
Now I've picked up the nuances of the games.
You hit that one well. You're learning very
Yeah.
fast. I like
All right,
it.
so the guy that says I'm so bad at this knows all three and what teams they play for.
We'll see if he gets all. I mean, no one's ever gone perfect in a game before, so I'll throw the jinx out there.
No.
All right, number 4, Doc, starting with you. Spencer Speaker.
It's a real player.
Rob?
Fake player.
It is a fake player.
All right, well, I'm not winning this game. I told you, Rob. GG.
Number 5. Rob, you're starting out. Richie Stubbs.
Another like that's like Leo Smith also. Fake player.
Doc?
Only chance I have going the opposite. Real, baby.
And it is a fake player.
To be fair, I would have guessed a fake one, but I needed the opposites. Let's be real.
All right, question 6. And I think
You even want me to guess.
Yeah, I do. Doc, Luca Tresh.
Luca Tresh. It's a real one.
Rob?
Yeah, I'll go with real one too.
Rob, stop copying me.
He's a catcher for the Royals. That is correct. I'm gonna
There
throw
you
the
go.
bonus one in here just to see if Rob can get all 7 for 7 here. Last one, Tanner Tully.
Jeez. Fake.
And prevents the perfect game. The perfect game does not exist for Triple Play Fantasy in any game yet. He is a real player. He's a left-handed pitcher for the Cleveland Guardians.
To be fair, not to argue the rules of the game that you've created, that you run, that you administer, does not getting the bonus question really count against me? The bonus question, as you explained the rules, was only in case it was a tie, which this just definitively was not a tie.
So Rob, what I think of this as, you're now Armando Galarraga.
There you go.
Wrong side of history.
It's true. I think the umpire has kind of screwed me here.
You know what? I might have lost the game, but I got the mic drop.
There you go.
know
That
what?
was very good.
That's a high five for that. A virtual high. That was the perfect comparison.
That was very good.
This is Armando Galarraga. But on that note, Rob, I want to thank you so much for joining the show tonight. It was an absolute ton of fun for us to have you here.
This was great, and I'd love to come back closer to the season to do this again, and we can do the same 6 players and see how we flip-flopped on all 6 players and are in totally different places once we've actually done all our prep and actually dove into the player pool for next year. Now, this was a great time, guys. Really appreciate the invite.
Hey, I'm not even just like that. You like genuinely made us laugh more than we've laughed on shows in a while, and do all the stuff we love doing here. And can't wait to have you back on, like you said, closer to the season. As long as I know you're a busy guy, so as long as your schedule's free.
No. If you're gonna call me a clown, I'm happy to come back anytime. if I make you laugh.
I love it. Well, before we go, for those that have been living under a rock, can you tell them where they can find you on Twitter, all the great stuff that you do and that you got going on?
Twitter, I'm at Rob Silver. I try to avoid the Canadian politics as much as possible, but every once in a while there'll be some confusion if you don't know what's going on in Canada. And the Launch Angle podcast, we're taking we did a live episode from Arizona. We'll take a few weeks off, and then we'll start diving into prep for next season very shortly with Van Lee and Jeff Zimmerman. So check that out.
They're a great squad, and they have a great podcast. If you haven't checked that out, make sure you are. If you're not already, next week we're going to be diving into some more off-season content with another guest. So who knows what guest that'll be, but it'll be fun regardless. Until then, everyone stay safe, enjoy the World Series, and we're going to make like a bread truck and we're going to haul these buns. Catch you guys.